evening. I want to thank you for coming out this evening. This is a very important day, and just to put this in perspective, there are 1,000 actions taking place throughout the entire United States today. Everywhere you can imagine. Community allies and religious leaders are standing together and saying, we are one because we know that we must stand together in solidarity because of the threats facing working men and women, the middle class, and the working class today in America. I'll tell you, it's really unfortunate. April 4th, 1968 was a long time ago. It was 43 years ago. And Dr. Martin Luther King did something that none of us can even fathom, right? He stood up for striking sanitation workers, 1,300 of them in Memphis. And as a result, he gave the ultimate price. He lost his life. And he did that because he went down to Memphis knowing there were threats, and he wanted people to understand the core idea that every worker, every single worker, regardless of your race, regardless of where you come from, and regardless of what job you do, every single worker demands and deserves dignity and respect. Yeah. And you know, it's a shame. It's a shame that April 4th, 1968 looks a lot like April 4th, 2011. Yeah. It's a shame, but it's heartening, because I know when I look out and see so many people out here this evening giving up their evening to stand in solidarity with workers throughout the United States who are losing those very rights that Martin Luther King died for, those very rights, that we have a movement that's going strong and is going to fight till the very end to ensure that we still have a middle class in America. Are we going to do that? Yeah! You know, in 1968 in Memphis, the fight was about sanitation workers and the basic right to have a union to collectively bargain. Well, today in San Diego, our sanitation workers, one of whom we'll hear from later, are threatened to have their work outsourced. Our police and fire, our city workers, our white-collar and blue-collar workers at the city are in threat of having their retirement security put out to Wall Street. We have hotel workers and janitors and home health care workers who are struggling to make the very basics, the ends meet, so that they can feed their family and keep a shelter over their head. This is happening in 2011 in San Diego, and we're here tonight to say we're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep fighting for those workers, and we're not going to stop until everybody realizes that we need a middle class in America. Is that right? Yeah! This evening is about solidarity and about working together, and about seeing so many community allies and religious leaders, so many unions. I could name them all out, but I always get in trouble when I do that, so I'm not going to. But unfortunately, it's not a lot about the elected officials who are supposed to be standing by us, is there? I look around, I don't see a whole lot of them here today. Is that we're sitting here in the middle of the Civic Center Plaza, right under the shadows of City Hall. And as some of you may know, a few weeks ago, just like so many of our brothers and sisters throughout the nation, we took a resolution to our elected officials. Those elected officials in cities, in areas where we had a majority, we know that we had walked and phone called and helped get people elected. We know they had come in before us and pledged their support for collective bargaining, for unions, and for workers. So we went to those elected officials and we asked them to do something we thought was really simple. We asked them, can you just pass a resolution in support of collective bargaining for our workers? Now we know California is not Wisconsin, it's not Ohio, thank God, it's not Tennessee. We know that right now, we still have the right to collectively bargain. But we know there's always a possibility that somebody comes in and threatens that right. So all we wanted was for those elected officials, where we had a majority of people that supposedly supported workers, to pass a simple resolution saying they believed in collective bargaining, they believed in workers, and they stood with us. Well, we got positive responses through most of the school districts and the community college boards, the cities of Chula Vista and National City. But I'm going to be really honest with you. When we took that resolution to the city of San Diego, we were told no. Last I counted, of the 8 members members on the city council. 5 were supported by every one of the unions here, or most of the unions here, and another 1 was supported by at least our public safety unions. And yet, only 1 city council member, Marty Emerald, was even willing to write a memo in support of that resolution. Now, a lot of people think that maybe we should back off. It's just a resolution, right? It has no real practical effect. And I was told it was divisive, that the UT would editorialize against it. I heard that it wouldn't be good for workers to bring it up in council. But in the meantime, our city council passed unanimously a day to recognize Ronald Reagan. They passed a resolution in support of the anniversary of the Claremont Federated Republican Women's Group. They passed resolutions in support of EDCO and the former head of Cox Communication, 2 anti-union companies. In the time period that they told me to pass a resolution in support of workers and collective bargaining was too divisive. Is that okay? Well, I don't think it's okay either.
Recall!
I'm not quite there yet. But I'll tell you what, many of you know me, and when I start to really feel passionately about something, and I gotta be honest, at first I was like, this is just another resolution, what are we doing? But I took it to our executive board, I took it to you, all of our unions, and I said, if they can't do the very basic idea of standing with us when we know our rights are being threatened throughout the United States, then what are they gonna do when we bring them a real problem? Are they gonna stand with us then? No! So I'm not big on giving up. So we're asking people today, before you leave, somebody tell me where you are. All right, before you leave, to go over and see Jerry and my daughter Tiara, you can all meet Tiara, who, if you're willing, especially if you live in the city of San Diego, sometime during the program, if you can go over there and take your picture with the sign that says, pass the resolution, stand up for my rights. We're going to tag it and send it to the council members, especially if you live in their district, to remind them tomorrow we will be doing it every half an hour to remind them that there are real people in their district whose rights they care about or should care about, and they need to pass that resolution. Do you think you can do that for me?
Yeah!
All right. I see a first victim over there, so you guys go over there. All right. It's really, so many unions have come together and throughout all of these rallies throughout the United States. But when we look at the history of Martin Luther King and what he did, there was one union in particular that was tied to that history. I love all the movement going over there to take your picture. Please continue to do that throughout the evening. But AFSCME was the union that, and as we'll see a little movie a little later on, to just see the extent to which they went out in support of these sanitation workers and have been at the forefront of public workers throughout the United States. And in fact, it was AFSCME who first brought collective bargaining to Wisconsin, the home state of public sector collective bargaining in the nation, now being threatened. So it's with great respect that I bring up an international vice president of AFSCME, our president of the United Domestic Workers, our own Doug Moore. Yeah.